What is going on, guys? It is Ian and Victoria here from the Radioactive official podcast, and today we are joined by the legend himself, Chris Biersack. How are you doing today,
Well,
Chris?
great. That was one of the best introductions I've ever had in my life.
I
I
told you
have
it was gonna
no
get
idea. I have it was, but I have no idea what I'm legendary for. But I'll take it. Thank you.
you're the iconic BVB dad. Like you
Yeah,
I feel like bring together the army, like you are the glue that just revolves around the BVB army.
I try to recognize people who have been fans of the band and bring them together the best that I can. I think that if there's anything that is very consistent with Andy's vision for Black Veil Brides from the beginning through the entirety of the band, it's always been about a community of people. And I've taken that pretty seriously over the years and tried my best to provide information to people, sometimes provide facts when people only know the what aren't facts or truth, mistruths, if you will. But primarily, I've made a concerted effort, particularly on Twitter X, over the years, to give the fans as much real information about what's going on with Black Veil as I possibly can. And because I talk to Andy on a pretty regular basis, I know the reality from what other people are saying or espousing, and usually it's very cordial. When people are saying stuff and I know it's wrong, I'm not going to be uh, trying to shade them. I'm just going to be trying to inform them or educate them. And if they say, "Oh, I didn't know that," well, thanks for sharing that with me. They might not know I'm Andy's dad, but I just want them to watch a Black Veil video if they don't really know. If they say this band sucks, but I'm like, here's a video. This is if you can watch Black Veil in this video and then still say that they suck, then okay, I'm never going to change your mind. But if you say they suck and then you find out that they're a really good band, you may not like the song, but they don't suck. Suck is like can't play their instruments. There's no tonal quality to anything that they do. There's no hook. There's nothing about it that says this band should have the career that they have. That's one thing. But when you just flat out say this band sucks, I'm probably going to fight back and say, if somebody's saw your post and you said they suck, I'm going to stick a video right underneath it so that the person that checks it out can see that no, your taste sucks, not this band. It's right here. I'm going to give you evidence that they don't suck.
Yeah, it's just like, I'm a big movie guy. I've always been a big movie guy. I get it from my father. And you know, you will never catch me saying a movie sucks before I, I go see it.
Right.
Now, if I see it and and here's the thing too, it's just like music in some people don't like certain genres of music. Some people don't like certain genres of movies. Like some of my friends hate horror movies. I, on the other hand, love horror movies.
Mm-hmm.
Will never slander a film I haven't seen.
Mm-hmm.
After the fact, I might be like, okay, it wasn't really doing it for me.
Right.
Like,
That's
okay,
fine.
yeah,
That's fine.
that's fine. That's
That
fine.
I have no problem with somebody saying, "Yeah, they're just not my cup of tea," or I like other bands more than I like them. That's fine. That's going to happen. It's all about. I mean, we have so many different tastes in music that we might, as human beings, have based upon our upbringing, based upon just generally what soothes our ears or what we find to be inspiring. So it doesn't necessarily mean that somebody doesn't like Black Veil Brides, that there's something that I think that there's something inherently wrong with them. But when somebody says, it's just something like really crude or rude or on a social media post, and they say that they suck or this is the worst band or this band has never had any talent or whatever the hell it is, that's just a silly thing. And so my thing is to stop arguing with them and literally just show that what you just said, if anybody cares to find out how valid your point is, I'm going to give you Bleeders right underneath. I'm going to put Certainty, or I'm going to put Vindicate underneath it, which are the three most recent. Hallelujah too, but I mean those three have the band in them, so you can actually see the band in what they're playing. So yeah, I'm proud of the band. I'm proud of my son. I'm really proud of this album, and I can't wait for you guys to hear it. It is incredible.
I'm fucking stoked.
And you got a little sample last night on WrestleMania of the one of the other songs that hasn't been released. And I'll just tell you that every song that you haven't heard yet is a banger. And they may be better than what they've released, the stuff that they've held back. That's how good this album is. There is nothing on it that you'll skip. Now, having said that, if you've been listening to Bleeders for a year and a half, or you've been listening to Hallelujah and Certainty over and over again, when upon your first or initial listen to the record, you may skip over those to hear all the new stuff. But when you put the album on and put the headset on and just go out and do something, you're going to love how this album flows and how perfect each song sets up with the next one. It's something special. And Andy talked about it in the thing that he dropped, where he goes over each and every song on the album. And he gave literally a breakdown of every single song on the album and how he wrote it and what it means.
To be fair, Letterkenny?
Yeah. I watched that and Shorzy.
Oh my god, dude, it's so goofy. I love Letterkenny so much.
It's the best.
Let me turn on a fan, dude. I am sweating like a hoe in church right now.
Victoria and I can just have a conversation while you're doing that.
Yeah, he's just, I don't know. He does this so much.
I don't know how you edit this stuff.
Yeah.
It must be almost impossible.
What I've gotten the knack of things.
What is the topic that we're on now? I don't even know.
This is our problem. We derail.
Okay, I got a topic.
So
I got a topic. A good topic. That actually involves what we need to be talking about.
Hot topic?
Okay, hot topic.
Yes.
Here we go.
Right.
So, a thing I wanted to kind of talk about was this, the whole album coming out May 8th.
Right.
We have some collaborations on this album, and one is with Lilith.
Yeah.
So, I just want to talk about kind of her involvement with the band throughout the years, because she's done a lot of features on their songs throughout the years, and now we're getting a song that actually, features her.
This song it features her more than any other song that they've ever done. I would say it's on par with when Andy and Juliet did the Punk Goes Pop song, the Adele song. Mm-hmm. It's that kind of back and forth, and it's perfect for the two of them. This song was actually partially written by Ben Bruce, or a large portion of the song, I should say. I'm not really sure exactly how much, but I know that Ben Bruce and his writing partner in England had a big part in this, because Andy talks about that on that thing that I told you that neither one of you listened to. I'm going to tell you this right now. I will send you a link that somebody put on YouTube about this. And I did not share that link because I wanted the people who subscribe or get these from Andy to have something special that they could enjoy. But there is somebody who's actually who put it up there in its entirety. And you don't have to hit individual ones to hear him talk about each song. You can literally just listen to him talk about the whole album. It takes about an hour, but it's really, it'll give you great insights before the record comes out. So again, what was your question? I don't remember.
Oh, just, Lilith collaborating with BBB.
Oh, yeah. It's a great song. It really is. And it's probably the biggest power ballad that Black Veil's ever had. Everybody's like, oh my God, everybody expects every song on this album to be like super heavy. That's just ridiculous. Nobody wants to listen to an album that every single song is just, there's no, change of pace in the.
You need that space.
Yeah, you do. You need something that's a little bit different in the albums, and they've got some of that in there. But it's a great song. First time I heard it, I said to Andy, "Are you guys going to release this as a single?" And he said, "I think it's going to be our mainstream radio song." I really do think that, and the record label's excited about it, and we'll see. We'll see what the reception is to it, but I know I like it. I know Andy loves it. He said it's one of his favorite songs that he's ever done with Black Veil. And Jake and Jinx had a huge role in it. Cece does too. It's rock and roll as hell, but it's beautiful, and that's kind of one of those things that only a band that has instrumentation that Black Veil has in rock and roll, that has a guy who can play pretty much any stringed instrument that's out there, and another guy who can build all of that in Jake, who can build all of that out from the contributions that Jinx makes, and to have a drummer who is so incredibly talented and fast as Cece is. You know, you can ask somebody to do that, but they would almost require an entire orchestra sometimes to do that, to make that happen. And in this case, led an orchestra. He led a choir on this song. So it's amazing. It's one of my favorite things that I've ever heard them do, and I can't wait for people to hear it. I think everybody that hears that song is going to love it.
Nice. I'm getting kind of like Savior 2 vibes from what you're kind of.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like a much grander.
Yeah.
Savior 2 was just kind of Andy was at his wit's end about people constantly saying that he was canceled for doing this, for going on a tour with a guy, for, you know, I've said this in other interviews that I've done, and I don't want to rehash it, but if you're very naive or you're a child, you think that what you think is important should be important to the people who you like as artists. That is an extremely juvenile way of looking at things. These are grown men with houses to pay for and children and everything else. And they're 20 years, in Andy's case, into their careers. And if they have an opportunity to play in arenas in front of 15 to 20,000 people a night and be the main support for somebody who is at the time one of the biggest acts in rock, they're going to take it. They're going to do it. And the people that wanted to cancel them and call them names and everything else, Andy knew that he was going to get blowback, but just people just literally just calling him like a transphobe or whatever they were saying, which is insane if you know who Andy is as a person. It's something that I don't really want to revisit because it really upsets me, because he's such a good person and he's so welcoming of everybody and anybody, because he was so bullied and persecuted as a kid, and even his band was made fun of by so many bands when they started out, to their face or behind their backs or on the sides of the stage, mocking them and everything else, in the press, saying terrible things about him. You see the stuff that's going on now with a couple of people, and everybody's in an uproar. Oh, I can't believe that this guy wore makeup and now everybody's like making fun of him. Oh, I can hardly believe that. That happened to my 16-year-old son every freaking day. And 18 years old, every magazine, from the guy from As I Lay Dying to the guy from Five Finger Death Punch to this guy from another band and everything else, to Ollie Sykes taking a shot at him, saying all kinds of negative things. All of these guys did this shit, and those were his peers. He's just trying to make a career. And, there were other people that were not pieces of shit who came across and were welcoming, more veteran people like Alice Cooper and Rob Flynn, who we're going to talk about, I would assume, because Rob Flynn is from Machine Head, and Machine Head is also doing a collaboration. And, Sebastian Bach and Dee Snider and Paul Stanley from Kiss and and Steven Tyler, and the list could go on and on. There's so many great rock and roll people who came but when it's your peers, when it's the people that you see on tour, when it's the people you see every Warped Tour because you're playing every other year on Warped Tour, or you see at festival shows because they're all, you're all kind of mixed together. You're all at award shows together. When Black Veil won awards, people would boo them. People in other bands would boo them. I was at 2 APMAs where they won awards and other bands, and I'm not going to tell you who they are, but I'm just going to tell you, I'll never forget it. I will never forget that. And when I hear people talking about how nice those bands are, I'm like, you have no idea. CC goes to see other bands all the time. He's the nicest guy that there is. He goes and he's supportive and everything else. Jake and Jinx are very similar to that. I don't know if Lonnie does that because I don't know Lonnie as well as I know the other guys. And Andy he's just kind of a homebody. He doesn't do that stuff. He doesn't go out to the clubs and the arenas and everything else. He likes to be at home with his wife and when he's not on tour or whatever. But, they'll all take a picture with CC, but they're the same people who talk shit about Black Veil Brides. Won't tour with them, don't want them on the bill. Anytime that their name is mentioned as a headliner, they're like, I'm not playing under those guys. It's the way the business has been for years and years, which is why there needed to be a record like Vindicate. When you hear the lyrics to this is Andy's opportunity to get it out and say what he wants to say. You have to pay attention. You got to understand that it's not going to be as blunt as maybe I am. It's going to be more allegorical, but it's still going to be him getting out what he needed to get out, and it's on this record. So that's probably why it's as heavy as it is too.
I won't say specific people, but I've had people in my life that see the Wretched and Divine album cover.
Right.
And it's, wow, there's a demon. It's demonic. It's satanic.
Yeah.
But it's funny because these same people, I'll just have my Spotify playing and Lost It All or any of the songs really. Like they don't have to be like the soft ones. And they'll be like, oh, like who is this? This is a really good song. And it's like, it's Black Veil Brides. Like,
But what people don't really think about is that the demon on the cover of the we'll call it BVB4, the self-titled album, was called Legion. That's his name. And Legion, it was Andy's name for the fans. He always wanted the fans to be called the Legion of the Black. That the fans started calling themselves the BVB Army, and it stuck, and that's what they became. But Andy, if he had his druthers, they never would have called themselves the BVB Army because there was already the Kiss Army. And I don't know, there might have been I didn't know about it, MCR, My Chemical Romance. I think they had an army.
Yeah, I think so.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, that wouldn't have been what Andy chose as the moniker for a fan group because it had already been done by somebody that he had followed. But he wasn't going to tell people who were already calling themselves the BVB Army, no, don't do that. He would have liked. In fact, I tried to get people on board with that a few, 10 years ago or whatever it was, because I knew that was something that he was like, he wanted to kind of change. He wanted the fans to have their own name, not a name that other fans had called themselves. But ultimately, it doesn't make a difference. We're the BVB fans, and we're a very special breed because we've never had the it band. We've never had a band that the critics and the tastemakers in the scene just fawn all over. Even if I'll tell you right now, I was joking about this, but not so much. I think that this album should get a Grammy nomination. It's that freaking good. And me saying that will make some people totally upset, but they're the same people that will say that this freaking band du jour who nobody's going to hear about in 5 years down the line. Black Veil's been doing this for 20 years. And in particular with the current crop of guys, this is their 17th year together. But no matter what, they never get that. Nobody ever says, this is it. These are the guys. You hear it in bands that used to be below them on the bill, on the, as far as opening for them, got past them up because their record labels pushed them hard enough to radio that they got on radio. And Black Veil's record labels didn't do that. It changed the perception of the band. But the one thing you can't change, no matter what you do, is you can't fake being a live band. You can't do it. You can play over the top of music, and I've had this conversation with you guys in the past. You can play, people are now using tracks in a way that's literally just playing their music and singing over their entire song. And that's fine. If that's the way an audience wants it, I don't want it that way. I'm a punk rock guy. So is Andy. I don't want that. I want to hear a live band. Now, do I want to hear a live band that has like gang vocals that you couldn't replicate unless you brought 100 people on stage with you? Yeah, I can understand putting that on a track. That's going to happen. Black Veil has a lot of big gang vocals and chants and stuff in their songs, and you couldn't replicate that with three guys singing on a microphone. So you got to have that. And you couldn't replicate the entirety of the symphonic elements that Black Veil Brides puts in some of their songs that Jinx does all the stringed instruments on, but he does them one at a time and puts them, through Pro Tools and everything else, and then they put them out. So that I completely understand. And then think about the aesthetic. When Black Veil came up, everybody said all these terrible things about how they looked and this and their faggots and all, the makeup and all these other things. And then all of a sudden, you start seeing all these bands that had black paint on their necks and on their arms and everything else. And they're all over the place. And these bands that used to make fun of Black Veil saw that they were on the cover of all these magazines because of the way they looked. And they were like, well, we want to be on the cover of magazines too. We're going to. And people thought they invented that. And I would say, I remember when they invented that about 5 years after Black Veil Brides invented it.
Isn't that what the song Stolen Omen is about?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
It's about a particular band. Andy is more politically correct and say there's a number of bands, which there are. But when you have a particular band that's getting lauded for something that you did, and that they weren't doing it because they toured with you in your earliest days and they weren't doing it then, and they were kind of making fun of you for doing it, that when they wind up doing it and they get credit for it and you took all kinds of hell for it, it becomes something that it really all goes back to this album is, what I'm telling you is just a culmination of 15 or 16 years of just people in the scene media, never giving them any level of credit, just always being down on them, and people talking about how bad Andy sounded, and if the band had anybody else singing that they might like them, and then all of a sudden people are like, no, Andy's got a great voice and I think he sounds great and everything else. And it's all about time. I told Andy when he started this, I said, in 20 years, people will accept you because that's the way rock and roll works. Under normal circumstances in your career in pop or hip hop or country, if you don't make a mark within the first 2, 3, 4 years out of the chute, you're going to have a hard time breaking through. But in rock music, because there's so many old people who in the rock music scene, and there's so many bands, grandpa bands, who just won't give it up, man. You got guys that are out there on stage with their colostomy bags in their right hand and the freaking microphone in their left hand, and they just can't. They're going to die on stage. They don't, and it's all because they blew all their money. They were in a time where guys actually made a shit ton of money and they blew it all, and so they're still playing shows in front of 60-year-old, 70-year-old people who are trying to relive their youth, and they're like 80 years old and they got to cancel the show. Well, of course they do. My dad's 85 years old. Okay, I wouldn't want him out there. I wouldn't pay money to see him rocking. You know, it's insane. When I was a kid, for somebody to have been in rock and roll or in music for 40, 50 years, when I was a kid, they would have had to have been in rock 30 years before rock was invented. Okay, so that wasn't a problem for 70s bands. That wasn't a problem for 80s bands or 90s bands. But in the last 10, 20 years, it's been one grandpa band after another trying to get that last dollar and screwing over your Bring Me the Horizons, your Motionless in Whites, your Falling in Reverses, your Black Veil Brides, I mean, your what I consider to be the standard rock bands of the current time. Pierce the Veil, the bands that have kind of stood the test of time as far as Warped Tour and everything else. Those bands have a harder time getting arena shows and booked on arena shows because these old guy bands are still taking up the scheduling. They're still getting booked because you can get more money when your fans aren't teenagers. When your fans are in their 40s, 50s, and 60s, you can charge $200 a ticket. But you can't charge $200 a ticket when your fans are 16 to 30 because 16-year-olds don't have $200, $300, $400 for a ticket. So that's the difference. And so the promoters, the booking agents, they don't want to book the younger bands because they can make more money off of the older bands. And the older bands aren't retiring because they can make a hell of a lot of money. But they're screwing their audience over because they can't move a muscle on stage. They're basically just standing there, and it's sad. I wouldn't go see these old guy bands anymore. It's ridiculous. And I'm an old guy. Trust me. I should be like excited to go see. I'm not going to name of any band, but let's just put it this way. When Andy was like 6 years old, I took him to see Kiss, right? Kiss, Gene Simmons is still playing shows, okay? Andy was 6 years old, and Gene Simmons had already, and at that time, had already had a 25-year career. And 30 years later, Andy's 35 now. Almost 30 years later, he's still up on stage and playing shows so he can make money off of it. It's insane. Mm-hmm. It's greed. It's terrible. It's ridiculous. I want these grandpas to just sit in the rocking chair and think about the great career you had and move along so that these other bands give a shot to get in there and prove that they can also fill arenas. But they never get that chance as long as you're going to have these old guys that just keep coming back time after time after time. I can't even tell you how many times Motley Crue is at a retirement tour. It's insane. And I love Motley Crue. Don't get me wrong. Nikki Sixx was very nice to Andy. But when is enough enough? When is enough enough? I just look at it and think, those guys didn't have like bands that had been around for 50 years or 40 years still competing against them for the entertainment dollar or against them to book venues. So when people say, well, why is Black Veil playing in theaters for this tour? Why aren't they playing in arenas or whatever? It's like, because arenas are putting in, you know who these bands are. I don't need to name them, but those are the bands that are getting the booked because their fans are in their 40s and 50s, and people in their 40s and 50s have the most expendable incomes. And that's not the word I'm looking for, but they have extra money that they can spend that senior citizens don't have and that teenagers don't have or young people don't have. The people that are right in the heart of their career or at the back end of their career where they've already made all their money and they're making the most they're ever going to make have all that money. And if they're willing to give you $200 to $300 for a ticket to see some old band, and the young band knows their audience and says, well, we can't charge our fans more than $50 or a maximum $100 for a ticket, they're going to go, well, I'm just going to go with the old band because I'm going to make more money from that. It's not about rock and roll. It's not about moving the genre forward. We always hear this stuff about there's no new rock stars. That's insane. That's insane. Ronnie Radke's a rock star. Andy Biersack is a fucking rock star. Okay, Ollie Sykes is a rock star. No matter what he said about my kid when Andy was coming up, he's a rock star. Chris Motionless is a rock star. All right, Spencer Charnas is a rock star. There are people in the, Will Gold of Creeper. He's a rock star. If you watch them play, you watch them perform, they have that it. They have what it takes. And if you gave them the big stage and all the bells and whistles like these other people have, they could shine, but they just don't get that opportunity. The only other thing that they get is old bands want them to warm up for them and pay them nothing. And they like to call it exposure. Black Veil was had sold like millions of records, and they still had old bands saying, well, we'll let you on our tour, but we can't pay you. And they were like, well, I'd rather play in a theater and make money off of this, our own money, and come back from the tour with some money than try to scrape together money so we can lose money on the road opening for you guys. And that's just the way it is in the business now. So that's my 2 cents. You can edit it any way you want. I don't really care.
No, that is all very true. I totally agree with that. I never actually really thought of it that in depth before, though, with like, why is there no rock stars right now? Like I said, there is. It's just everyone's still focused on their Motley Crues, their Guns N' Roses, their
Right.
Poison.
It's insane because kids know, young people know. I mean, there's a reason Andy was on the cover of every rock magazine for a period of X amount of years, multiple times. How there's 2 different magazines, one in the UK and one in the United States, where he's appeared on their cover more than any other artist. It's because he is a rock star. Revolver magazine called him one of the top 50 living rock stars, along with Ronnie Radke. They nailed that. That was 15 years ago that they came out with that, and they nailed that. Andy was just 18 or 19, 20 years old at the most when they came out with that issue, the 100 greatest living rock stars or 50 greatest, I can't remember what it was. But Andy was on the cover, and Radke was also on the cover of that magazine. And they nailed that. I've talked to Ronnie about that, about how, there were a lot of people on that cover that were old rock stars that had already been established. And then there was 2 guys on that cover who had not made their bones yet. We're just at the outset. Ronnie was just getting out of prison. He was back. He had reformed a new band, Falling in Reverse. He was just going out and starting to tour. And then Andy just made it big in the UK with Black Veil, and they were starting to get a big push. And all of a sudden, Revolver Golden Gods and all the rest of that stuff, Revolver magazine put them on the cover as 2 of the biggest rock stars in the world, along with every grandpa rocker you could ever imagine. They were all up there. Yeah. But that's rock and roll. And that's why I said to Andy, I give you 20 years to become, because he would always get to say, we're not, I want us to be bigger and better and everything else. And I'd say, hey, you're not even going to get, most of these guys didn't even get any attention until they were 15, 20 years into this thing. You've already gotten way past that. You've sold millions of records, and you've got more awards in your trophy case than most high school sports teams have. That Black Veil has done really well for themselves. But what they really need is they need their fans to help them get at a minimum, a top 5 Billboard record. And what really would wake people up to the fact that this band is what it is would be a number 1 record. if they could do that somehow through sales of, which is why, the bands were really working hard pushing for people to buy the CDs and buy the vinyls and everything else, because they want a benchmark that they can look to and say, this should be our norm.
All the snaps.
You
All the
know,
snaps.
yeah. I mean, I'm excited for the new record. I think it's gonna be super, super sick. We'll wrap up here right away, but do you have anything else to say about the new record before it comes out? Anything fans are gonna be like mind blown about or just super excited about?
We were going to talk before about the Rob Flynn from Machine Head.
Mhm.
He lends his vocals to The Revenger, or Revenger, which is also the title of Andy's new book. And Rob is one of the OGs when it comes to being a supporter and a really good friend of Black Veil Brides over the years. You might not think that Machine Head and Black Veil Brides have a lot in common musically, but I've always said I think Black Veil's a lot heavier than people give him credit for. But I also think that Rob Flynn understands and appreciates a hook and a good melody and a chorus and great guitar work and solos and a variety of things that some people have lost their they no longer, people that are in the scene no longer seem to care about a band that could literally do dual guitar solos and shred together and off of one another the way Black Veil can, and or a drummer that can play as fast and as furious as Cece, while being also incredibly entertaining compared to most of the guys and even the girls that are out there playing. But Rob could see that, and he befriended Andy and was very positive and very complimentary of Black Veil at a time when it was very important to Andy. Because, like I said, there were people like Phil Anselmo from As I Lay Dying who were shitting all over Black Veil Brides. And there were people like Ivan Moody from Five Finger Death Punch who was saying negative things about them, which to me is just a sign of pure ignorance. If you're already making it and you're already a good band that people know who you are, to take a shot and make a homophobic slur about some person you don't even know, but I think they were afraid, because why is this guy all of a sudden on the freaking cover of these rock magazines and I'm not? And why is everybody talking about this Black Veil Brides and they're not talking about me? This album is a great example of it. If you read the lyrics and you spend enough time with it as a fan, I think that it'll be very inspirational to a lot of people who have been with this band for so many years, and they finally have reached a point where they want to let it all out. They want people to know, you were wrong, I was right. I stuck behind this band all these years, and look where they are now. So we'll see. We'll see what the response is. But I'm excited to find out. I hope you guys are too.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm really excited for the new album. But
I
yeah,
do.
on that note, I think that's a perfect way to wrap this up.
Great,
You
great. I
guys,
love talking to you guys.
yeah,
I
this
really
was
do.
fun.